We got Casey, my good friend Casey, on the show. I can't believe it.
My uncle was burnt pretty bad in an explosion. I asked him, do you ever ask why it happened to you? And he said, why not me? It gives you a unique perspective. I worked with a bunch of guys, and had what happened to me occurred with them, they didn't have the village, the support network that I did. I had a traumatic brain injury. I'm a terrible witness. The whole process became a whole convoluted mess. I was out for over a year. I was frustrated, couldn't do anything. Learn how to ask for help. It is a blessing. It's an awesome opportunity to learn to be more appreciative and have more gratitude. It gives me an opportunity to give people something that I didn't have.
We got Casey, my good friend Casey, on the show. I can't believe it. Welcome.
How long have we been knowing each other?
You're gonna make me do the math.
So
So Aurora is 26.
6?
She 25, buddy?
25.
You're almost 25? No, she is 25.
She is 25. Yeah, she
Yeah.
just turned 26.
Yeah.
We should probably know these things.
Yeah, let's maybe edit this one out.
Yeah,
you
this
know?
come out
but
post, right?
so 25 minus, so it's kindergarten, about 5-6 years.
20
So about
years?
20 years, yeah.
Wow. It has been a minute.
It flew by though.
Yeah. Really fast.
Cause, yeah. Well, when we moved in North Glen, we bought that house in, 2000. When did you move to North Glen? No, you've always lived in North Glen.
Yeah.
But, yeah
1977.
but when did you buy the house
5.
in North Glen? Yeah. Is it on Tank?
Tancred.
Yeah.
So my parents bought the house in North Glen in 77, and funny thing is there's actually a funny story about that, because I was 5, my sister was 8, she must have been 8, and we were in Wisconsin staying with my grandfather. So we had some cousins that were generation older than us, but they were driving back to Colorado because my grandfather had a cabin up in near Bailey. And so they were going to do their honeymoon at the cabin up in Bailey. So in hindsight, I look back at this and I go, that was an awful thing to do to two people that were going on their honeymoon, is settle them with a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old. We were in a van, and it was, I'm sure if I remember, it feels like it was like an old 70s van with like the little moon window and stuff.
Right. Is that like the old VW thing?
No, it was like a Econoline or something like that, but it was like the old school conversion, you know, with the long shag carpet and stuff. Yeah. And
the kidnapper van now.
Right.
Yeah.
The creeper van. So they asked these poor folks to drive us back to Colorado. And so we get to Colorado. Now this is obviously back in the 70s, and there's no cell phones or anything like that. And my parents had moved while they'd scheduled it and done the move from our old house down in southwest Denver up to North Glen in those 4 weeks that we were in Wisconsin, hanging out with my grandfather. And so we get to Colorado, and the people that are driving are like, so where do you live? I'm 5, she's 8. We're like, I think we moved.
We don't know where we live.
We don't know. So we had to play this game of trying to figure out, so these people on their honeymoon are calling different relatives and trying to get them to get in touch with my parents because we didn't have our telephone number, and all of these different things. So finally, they were able to get there. These 4 newlyweds were able to finally get on track with their honeymoon. But I think about it in hindsight, I was like, wow, that was really irresponsible of everybody involved.
Oh, you're going on your honeymoon? Hey, take these 2 little guys or little people. So,
but it actually is kind of gratifying because I think back on that and I think all the things that I've done as a grown up and as a parent, and I think, okay, well, I mean,
I could see that happening.
I'm genetically predisposed to irresponsibility, so.
Yeah. know that you guys moved from Southwest Denver, though.
Yeah, we were down off of Jewel and Federal.
So like Lakewood-ish, maybe?
No.
Still Denver?
More like Athmar or Ruby Hill, maybe.
Okay.
It's kind of that area.
Wow.
Yeah. I go back down there. I still think that community is really cool.
But you grew up in Northland.
I grew up in Northland, my sister and I. But then when I worked, when I grew up, and actually I lived at home embarrassingly until my 20s, mid 20s. But one of the reasons for that was as I graduated from high school, and my first job, I went to work for the telephone company, and I was in the business office in a call center, hated it. And
in a call center?
I was at inbound call center, yeah. And one of the interesting, I had been trying to go outside as a network technician, and there was a freeze on all transfers because there was such a churn in the business office because it was kind of awful.
Mm-hmm.
And so I couldn't get transferred outside. It seemed like it was just impossible. And so I was looking for something, and I graduated when I was 17 from high school, and I was going to college, and then I think I'd been down at the business office for a couple of years, and I couldn't get outside, and I wasn't loving it, and so I started looking for alternatives. And we ended up, I was looking at maybe the military. I was really seriously considering the Navy or the Coast Guard. And my mom, she was like, hey, why don't you consider some of these other options? I've got a friend who's done some contract work in Macedonia and in Antarctica, of all places. And so I thought, well, I'll give it a shot, because really what I had was itchy feet. I wanted to get out and see the world. And so when I did my exit interview, when I left the phone company, I got a job with this Antarctic Support Associates, and it was a 6-month contract, and it goes during the austral summer, so from August until March. And in the austral summer, that's 24 hours of daylight in Antarctica, because it's southern hemisphere, all that.
Gee.
Yeah.
And you knew this going into it?
Oh yeah. It was exciting. I mean, I was 19.
Yeah.
It was crazy. So when I was doing my exit interview, when I finally decided, all right, I'm gonna cut bait and run, they told me, and this kind of dovetails into what I'm doing now, kind of, but I was not making like sales quotas and stuff like that. I loved connecting people, and I still do. I love connecting people with, taking a need or a want and connecting them with a person or a place or a thing that is a solution. So I like that part. And I'm of a mindset that that's an organic feed into sales, right? One of the things that is a sticking point for me is trying to, in that industry, it was more of a hard sell sort of a thing. So you were actually talking to people that were provably incapable of making, big phone bill payments, and they had old bills, credit problems, things like that. You'd have to find out like if they were on aid, like AFDC, and
You were a collection agency.
no, we were setting up like it was basically taking incoming orders for new telephone service.
Oh, I see.
So we had to do like a credit check and make sure, and these things, and if they had bad credit, we had to take a deposit, all these different things.
Mm-hmm.
But they, I'm giving you a lot of ums.
No, it's fine.
But the environment was that you were always trying to say, hey, it sounds like you're a busy person, you're looking for work or whatever. Call waiting might be a really good service or feature. And I mean, some of these things you could argue are good things.
Yeah, but your job is to upsell them. Gotcha.
And I'm looking at credit history, I'm looking at final bills and going, they got like $6,000. I mean, considered back in that time, people had like long distance bills and stuff like that that
Right.
were astronomical, and it was like you'd have to set up payment arrangements with them to pay off these final bills so they could get new telephone service, and then you're trying to sell them what is adding up to be another $60-$70 a month
On something they
on a
can't even
phone bill.
afford anyway.
on something where they could get by with just a base bare bones thing. And so that was I feel like that was kind of an ethical dilemma for me. So it was a good move. I needed to get out of that environment. But during my exit interview, they said I wanted to make sure I was eligible for rehire because at the time it was US West and they were the biggest employer in the state. And so they said, okay, so on the file it said, this Casey's eligible for rehire in any capacity other than sales.
Like they red flagged you.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Get this guy outside.
yeah. So I went and I did this contract overseas, and it was great. It was a wonderful adventure. I was able to see parts of the world that were just amazing and beautiful: New Zealand, Australia, and some other places in the South Pacific. And then I came back, and I went to working at some golf courses, waiting tables, and doing things like that. And then
Did you learn anything from that experience?
I learned a lot. I learned a lot emotionally. Like my emotional IQ increased really a lot, and it wasn't really by my choice. It was one of those things that just was a unexpected result, but it was really advantageous in hindsight. At the time, painful, not fun at all.
Just being away from home, or
well,
what?
yeah. And I mean, I was very much in love with this young lady, and my plan was to come back and I was going to ask her to marry me. And she was an amazing person, but I was 19, she was 19, and I left for 6 months. So
Anything could happen.
exactly.
Right?
And
Yep.
I don't. She ended up falling for this guy, and it's the guy she ended up marrying and has been with since then.
Mm.
So they have a long and durable and successful marriage, and I mean that's nice. I would never wish her anything negative, but but that was a hard thing to kind of navigate on my own without the immediate support of my family. And we had like the first generation of email and internet, but and there was a phone. You could make a phone call, but you could make like one phone call a week, and it was in a phone booth that was at another base.
Oh, so it's not easy.
No.
Yeah.
And you had to get a phone card, and it was a whole process.
Oh, gee.
Or you could use ham radio.
Yeah. Doesn't go that far. I don't
Well,
think.
it had
Right.
to bounce between different operators and all this stuff. But it was pretty awful. So
Wow.
yeah, navigating that and kind of being forced to take the time to be introspective and do some of the deep dives emotionally and do some of that hard work was, you don't want to do that.
Right.
It's uncomfortable. But as a result, I think that I grew up an awful lot emotionally when I was there, which has served me really well.
Yeah.
My wife and I now have been married for almost 26 years. And I can honestly say that I love her more today than I did. That's that song.
Yeah.
I love you more today than I did yesterday.
Yeah. It's so true.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
I guess that's kind of a litmus test of moving successfully forward in your interpersonal community, in your relationships with people. I'm using my hands a lot.
No. So you stay at US West for how long?
This podcast is sponsored by Estrada Real Estate Group. Whether you're buying, selling, or investing in real estate, we can help you. Text us at 303-832-2120. Now back to the Estradanary Conversation.
For how long?
A couple of years, I left. I went to Antarctica, came back, and I worked in some different jobs, nothing really steady or permanent. And then an opportunity came to go back. So I had scheduled going back to Antarctica again, and this time I was going down to do a different job, have a different role. And my sister was actually going to go that second season, and so it worked out. It was really fortuitous that we were able to do that. And I got a notification that they'd accepted me for the position, and that August, it was for my sister's birthday. We actually were in Nebraska in Lake McConaughey on a camping trip, and my wife, who is now my wife, she was also camping, and it was really a weird thing because she was camping with a friend whose boyfriend had canceled. So she wasn't even supposed to be there, but she showed up, and we met each other, and it was amazing. We really connected. Of course, I don't know if you know that story.
No.
I have zero game. not 1 ounce.
You're
of
like,
game.
you want to build a campfire?
Not even 1 ounce. Not even 1 ounce of game. And yeah, my.
Well, good thing she's pretty outgoing.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. And I think once I get comfortable with people, I'm pretty gregarious. But yeah, no. So I was setting up my tent, and her girlfriend had brought their camping supplies, and they were setting up their tent kind of just adjacent to us, and it was the exact same tent that we had, weirdly. So I'm setting up the tent, but I'm an old Boy Scout, so we're on the beach at Lake McConaughey, and I'm like digging out an area to make it nice and level, and kind of grading it out so there's not lumps and stuff in the sand.
like not laying on
Right. Or while you're sleeping at night, you're just slowly sliding down the slope. So I'm making it level, and I look over, and they're looking at me, and they've already got their tent thrown up, which is great. It's commendable.
Right.
But it's sitting at like a 25% grade.
Who are those morons?
That's gonna be rough.
Yeah.
So she goes walking by, and I think she said, you know where the toilets are, and I said they're just up there, and I just kind of pointed it out and I said, just let me know how they are, and then I proceed to continue setting up our campsite, and she comes wandering back by. Meanwhile, I mean, little beknownst to me, I didn't know I had ADHD. I was diagnosed as an adult. She comes walking back from the bathrooms, and she says, "I don't recommend it." And I was like, I'd entirely forgotten that I'd had this brief conversation with her.
You're like Dory.
Exactly. And
like, why are you talking to me?
Right. Exactly. That's exactly what it was. And I looked at her and I went, "What?" And she was like, the bat.
You know, like what you asked me to do?
Yeah. Never mind. So that's the level of game I have.
Wow.
Yeah. But thankfully my sister was there. My sister and I are incredibly tight, you know that. And so she did some reparations and sorted it out for me.
She could kind of read between the lines, maybe. You know,
I think,
there might be a connection here.
Right. Yeah. And then also my sister loved her, like, immediately. And they've become thick as thieves. Yeah.
They might as well be sisters.
Right.
Like blood sisters.
For sure.
Yeah.
And so by the end of this camping trip, we were getting all wrapped up, and I was putting stuff in the truck and getting ready to go, and I'm up in the back loading things up, and my sister's pardon me, down there, and she's kind of talking to Betsy, my wife, and she's like, I'm up there, and I was like, hey, hey, maybe sis, hemming and hawing, and just stammering and just being totally insecure. Maybe we could get her, her number. And my sister goes, I got it, Case. I got her number.
I could totally see Kristen doing that. Like, I got it. I got it.
She's like,
yeah.
Don't hurt yourself.
Yeah, don't hurt yourself. I got it. Yeah.
So anyway.
So was Betsy from Colorado, or?
She was actually born in New York State,
Okay.
upstate New York in Cooperstown. And then her mom and she, her dad and her mom separated, and her dad moved to Hawaii via California. And so it was just she and her mom, and they moved to Colorado. Her mom followed a guru, and so they moved to Colorado, to Denver, to be part of this community. And then her mom unfortunately got sick, so then she went and she lived with her dad in Hawaii for a long time. So she's kind of a New York Kona girl living
Got
in
it.
Colorado.
Got it.
So randomly meeting her in Nebraska was,
Just one of those things that
yeah,
it was meant to be.
it was kind of kismet, I guess. So yeah. Anyway, the long story short, this was in August. My deployment was the end of August. My sister's birthday is the beginning of August, so literally a couple of weeks later, I'm leaving for another 6 months. So
Did you end up going?
I did. And I stayed in touch with her, and she's just so amazing and such a great communicator, and really, she's really such an intelligent woman. And so I was like, at this time now we had email, and we could make a phone call from the base and things like that. And she was like, "Look, dude, you need to pump the brakes here. Yeah, you need to."
You're coming on strong?
Yeah, I guess so.
Oh.
'Cause I'm down there by myself, and well, I'm not by myself, but and I'm not looking for any other love interest. And so she's
Because you're what, calling her every day, emailing her every day?
yeah.
So, okay.
So just
Oh, yeah.
yeah. If
And she's like, time out?
really-
a little
it-
time out? I need
Oh,
need
yeah,
some
yeah.
space?
it really tessellated into my game.
Or lack
Nothing.
thereof?
Way too much.
All or nothing, baby.
Yeah. So she was super cool, and I was like, all right. So I back off and I did my own thing, and I dated a gal when I was down there, short, just really, really cutely. And then when I came back, we reconnected through a whole host of obstacles that I put in there. But then we reconnected, and so we ended up getting married. And so we got married in June, and my oldest daughter was born in August. So you
A
kind
couple
of,
months later?
yeah, you can
Oh,
kind of do the
do
math.
babies come that fast?
Barely.
Barely.
We were
She was premature.
we were certainly not sinners.
Okay.
He says with an asterisk.
So first one comes.
First one comes, and
Okay.
so I immediately, as I'm like, I gotta find an RJ, a real job. So I start looking around, and I start looking at maybe an apprenticeship as an electrical lineman, things like that. And then I noticed that it's still US West at this point, and they're hiring outside technicians. So I was like, hey, that's serendipitous.
That's
I'll
me.
go for it.
Yeah.
So put in the application, tested for it, did the interview process, and they hired me on, and then I had a career started. So that worked out pretty well. So then Betsy and I were able to really launch and find some traction. But there was a long path, and I think a lot of times, and I don't know what your whole backstory is. I know that you and Tiana have been together since you were kids.
Yeah.
For the most part.
I met her in 8th grade. We had two middle schools that kind of 2 cities apart, Louisville and Lafayette. And it was a middle school game, and she had been working the table, so keeping score, things like that. And I went to check in, and I saw her, and I was like, I could marry that girl. Like at 8th grade, I could marry that girl.
It's amazing when that bolt of lightning hits.
Yeah, and I didn't know. I mean, then we ended up. So I didn't see her. That was like winter of 8th grade, and then I see her again at when we go to high school. So it was the high school in the middle of 2 towns, and both towns come together.
Right.
We ended up in high school, and we met again met really for the first time the summer going into our freshman year of high school.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
Yeah.
Been a minute.
Yeah. But yeah, we didn't. we got together for like basically a cup of coffee, and then she went back to her old boyfriend, longtime boyfriend, and I experimented, and I guess it's not the right word. Not the right word. No, experiment is not right.
No judgment.
Yeah. And then didn't get back together till junior year.
Wow.
Yeah, we became really good friends,
That's cool.
like best friends.
That's cool.
Yeah. So.
Betsy and I had it was a crucible for like the first probably 3 to 5 years of our marriage. Well, so we get married, we have a baby, and we buy our first house, all within a 3-month period. Those are three of the greatest stressors in any relationship. Her mom gets recurrent metastasized breast cancer. So my wife is, Betsy's is like the custodial person for her mom. And so she's doing all of the care and all the doctor's appointments and stuff like that. It was like 5 years into our marriage before we were able to kind of just take a breath and look at each other and go, holy moly, it's been 5 years. We've been
Like,
married
do you
5
still like
years.
each other?
Turns out, I don't know. I have excellent taste. Hers is questionable.
So you end up being at going back to US West. You're there for a long time.
Yeah. I was there I was there until 2023, December 2023. So they bridged my time, my previous service, and they bridged my time, and so they gave me what they call an adjusted term of employment. So they basically adjusted my start date to include those 2 years, which was really cool. And so when I left with almost 29 years service, and it was just really grinding me down physically and kind of emotionally. The industry is really it's really a dynamic industry in that it's always in flux. And if you look like throughout the history of telecommunications, there was a really level amount of technology for over 100 years.
Yeah, decades. Yeah.
And then like in the 2010 maybe, in that area, it's like this curve just started going upward, and right now it's basically a vertical line. The technology is growing faster than it is in time, as time, you know what I mean?
Well,
So
that's how technology is. Yeah.
Right,
So.
right. And so with that said, there was more and more responsibilities. Then also with kind of the way of these monolithic companies, you want to do more and more with less. So the easiest way to reduce cost is to remove headcount, especially when we're in a collective bargaining agreement. We're an organized labor group, so we were expensive, and so they started eliminating jobs. And I just always was just above that cut, because they would come through and they would call them surpluses, which is a gentle way of saying you're
Too
fine.
much. Yeah. We're trimming the fat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was always just had enough seniority, and I think it was actually because of the 2 years that they gave me, but it always gave me just enough seniority that I didn't hit that low water mark. And so I was always safe, but it was always a little bit.
That's stressful.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh.
Every contract.
How many times did you have to go through that?
Probably more than a dozen.
A dozen times you're like, I may or may not have a job.
Right. And then there was also contract negotiations. I went through, I think, 4 different contract negotiations just to stabilize what we were doing. And every single contract negotiation, we were losing what we had gained. And labor's a cyclical thing. Ideally it would grow. Workers would get better and better at benefits as the success of different corporations grew. That's not how it works. It's executives make more and more money, and the workers kind of stay stagnant. We get like a 2%, 3% raise per our contract per year, and then ultimately with inflation, cost of
It's a
living.
break even.
Not even.
Not even.
Mm-hmm. If our last contract, if we didn't hit based on what we'd lost in the previous probably 10, 15 years, if we didn't get a 30% raise, we weren't breaking even based on how things had progressed. So that was hard. And also, like I said, I worked the mountains a lot, and so.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Why
did I think you were like right in town? I don't know why.
I did work in town some, but a lot of my work was in the mountains above Boulder. I worked basically Central City, Georgetown, Netherland Ward, all of those areas. But I had to hike pole lines quite a lot, and for whatever reason, I was one of the very few guys that did my job that actually climbed telephone poles, climbed utility poles with climbers, when we call them gaffs.
So you have all this equipment? Like, what do you? Like, how do you do that?
Well, I bought like a backpack, and I would put my climbers and my belt, my body belt, and all that safety equipment, and then my tools in this backpack, and I would just hike these pole lines to wherever I needed to be.
So you pull off to the side of the road.
Mm-hmm.
You get your climbing gear,
Mm-hmm.
and you look for a pole, and you climb it.
Well, I mean, you can see these. I mean, it was a little more technical than that. We would have some idea.
What would you say your job description was?
Well, there was a lot more troubleshooting involved.
Okay.
You would start climbing random poles and hoping for the best. But,
plug it in. Nope.
Right. Sometimes.
Actually, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good method. Best practices here.
We needed to update our methods and
Right.
procedures.
Oh.
So then I.
So you're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, well, I was, and then I got a bucket truck, a boom truck, and we were going to talk about this. And in 2013, I was working up in Boulder County, and I was actually in town. I was, well, kind of in town. I was up off of Valmont Road and out kind of east. And I was raising some cables, telephone cables, and a truck came by, a heavy truck that had been rerouted because of some road work. And it had a big air dam on the top of the cab. And as it went by, I saw it coming, and I thought, that's going to be pretty close. So I'm gonna turn loose. For safety, I'm gonna let go of everything just in case. Well, as luck would have it, bad luck would have it, it caught the cable. The truck caught the cable, and those cables are tremendously strong, and it pulled the cable tight, and it snapped the utility pole. And this is what the investigation said, because I'm a terrible witness. And I'll tell you why. You know why. But snapped the pole, which then hit me. And for whatever reason, my safety lanyard didn't arrest my fall. And so I literally fell from about, I think my feet were at 15 feet. So I came...
That's a couple stories, 2.5 stories maybe.
Yeah, so I fell out of the truck, out of the boom, the bucket, and I landed on the side of the road on my head. And again, these are all details that I'm not...
Did you lose consciousness?
I don't know. I don't know. It's very, very spotty. I had a traumatic brain injury, and so one of the things that I've learned is that your brain is really amazingly elastic, and it'll actually block things out. I mean, most people know this. I was not really familiar with my brain activity. But I was a terrible witness for the whole event, and so the whole process became a whole convoluted mess with investigations and workman's comp and all these different things. Meanwhile, I had broken my thoracic 1, 2, and 3 vertebrae, and I'd shattered some teeth, and I had this traumatic brain injury, and I was out for over a year and in recovery, and we talked about it, I was in that, what they call Miami J neck brace, but it went down to my belly button, basically, and it was plastic, and it was like, I called it my Tupperware turtleneck, and I had to wear it 24/7. And luckily, I had a wonderful village. I mean, my mom and my dad and my sister and my Betsy and my girls were just amazing and so helpful and understanding. And I was home and I was frustrated because I couldn't do anything. I had lifting restrictions. Workman's comp is very, very strict. If you violate any of the conditions of your allowances, then I mean they can pull your benefits and without question and with all right. So
So how restricted were you? So it's almost like can you move your arms?
I can move my arms. I can walk.
You just can't bend
from the waist basically to the top of my head. So I can rotate at the waist. I can't turn my head, and I can't look down without bending at the waist. And it was really a stressful and difficult and dark time.
Had you ever
I was so lucky though, because I thought about it after the fact, and what I realized, and this is kind of this is more personal. Sorry.
Take your time.
My uncle was burned pretty bad in an explosion, power plant explosion, and he said something that was really, really, it was really something that I've held on to for a long time. He said, I asked him, do you ever ask why it happened to you?
Mm.
And he said, why not me? And I thought, at face value, that's an interesting statement, but when you really kind of dig into it, it gives you a unique perspective, in as much as you look at it in this way. I worked with a bunch of guys, and had what happened to me occurred with them, they didn't have the village, the support network that I did. So ultimately, it was an opportunity for me to learn and appreciate those people around me, and to learn how to ask for help.
You're not used to that.
No. Even harder, accepting help. And learning gratitude was those were amazing lessons. But had this happened to any one of the guys that I worked with, they would have had to have nurses and people coming to in-home visits and these different things, occupational therapists and all these things. I had people that came to see me every day. My mom brought me McDonald's oatmeal, which I have PTSD about, every single day.
You can't eat it anymore.
No, I can't. No. But and then my wife, I had to wear this device all day, every day, sleep in it. In fact, I slept in a recliner down in the den, what's now my office, and she came down and she slept on this couch, which was terribly uncomfortable, just to be right next to me in case something went wrong or I had anything that happened. I would shower, and I had to shower with this thing on. And so when I'd get out of the shower, I'd go in and I would lay on the bed, and I would lay flat on my back, and she would remove the front part of this Miami J, this brace, and she would replace the pads on it with dry pads, and then she would put it back on. And then I would have to barrel roll over, and she would have to replace the back. And this was something that I had to do, and she did for me without any sort of complaint. It was it was something that in now I can look back on and I can see the value of having an injury like that. And I always say, if you can have an injury that you can survive and come back from like that, it really is a really
It's like a blessing.
cool way. Yeah, a blessing. It is a blessing, and it's an awesome opportunity to learn to be more appreciative and have more gratitude. And I was gorked out on every kind of opiate you could imagine for a long, long time. So it took a minute to,
Yeah.
to recognize.
So
those
how far
things.
in did you ever tell your village how much you appreciated them?
Yeah, I think I have communicated that, which moves us into kind of today. So my parents are both 82. When an opportunity arose for another one of those surpluses at the phone company, which had gone from US West to Quest to CenturyLink to Lumen to Quantum Fiber, all these different outfits, doing the same job, driving the same truck, just different names.
Just different
on the
name.
truck. And they came through in 2023, and they said, we're going to do this surplus, but before we do this surplus, what we want to do is we want to offer the most senior people, the most expensive people, an opportunity to take a buyout and leave what they call a voluntary separation. And so they gave me a bit of a buyout, and I had enough service and my age that I was vested with my entire pension. I looked at it with my financial advisor, and we realized that there wasn't going to be any great change in the next few years, and I didn't really anticipate working at that company for very much longer anyway. And so I was kind of hoping to get my 30 years. Just, I don't know why.
Just because
it was just a number.
That's
Mhm.
everybody talks about 30 years.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And
But there wasn't an upside.
there wasn't really an
Not
upside.
really.
So I thought, my financial advisor, he said, hey, I think that you might be pretty good at doing this. And our firm we're growing. And there's, you're in real estate. And so a lot of times your industry is dictated by supply and demand, right? And sometimes you have far too much supply and far too little demand. Those are tough times.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you don't have enough supply and you have way too much demand. And yours is also directly tied to the economy and how good or bad the economy's doing. So if you have these cyclical economic trends, and when we've hit a peak of one of the cycles, and we're heading into a decline, which you could call a recession. I think a recession technically is like two consecutive quarters of X amount of decline. Then you notice people are not as willing to make moves in real estate, right?
Especially when you took advantage of the low interest rates.
Right. They're
Yeah, you got a 2% interest rate.
And what happens
Yeah.
in a declining economy? Interest rates go up,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the whole idea is, these big economists are looking to stimulate the economy. And that's one of the tools that they use. So, anyway, my financial advisor, he told me, you might be pretty good at this. This is an economy where all we have is demand, and we just don't have enough supply. There's a huge deficit in people who are in that industry, providing advice and giving the information to different people about how they can protect themselves in any part of that cycle, right? And I work with this group of guys. I'm not personally licensed to work in the as a financial advisor technically, because you have to be licensed. I'm licensed for life and health, so I can work with them, and they're amazing. But I partner with them when it comes to different investment strategies and things like that. So I can't directly give a client, here's the right way to do it. Here's where you should invest your money. You should put your money in these mutual funds, or in these bonds, or in these different things. I can introduce some of the ideas in a general way, but when it comes right down to discussing those directly and giving them strategies to do that, I have to lean on these senior partners that I work with, and they're amazing. There's over 100 years worth of knowledge just in my one office, and we have access to an office down in the tech center, and we just opened a new office up in Fort Collins, and one of the head guys down in the tech center, he's a licensed CPA. He's been down there. He's been for 30 plus years, and he's a resource that I can tap at any time should I need it. So he's really great, and really the team is really good. And one of the things that has drawn me to that group is it gives me an opportunity to give people something that I didn't have. We're not that far apart in age, so I suspect this is similar between you and I. When I was going through school, the only financial education I ever received was I learned to balance a checkbook in middle school. And that was it.
That's it.
That's the sum total of all of my financial education through public schools. A lot of us went to public schools.
But I think that was across the board. I don't think there was
so.
financial literacy in any school.
I think you're right. There's different things. There's different programs in high school, like DECA, things like that.
Right. Oh,
which
my,
would
DECA.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's a blast from the past.
right.
Yeah.
But and I was part of DECA, and so it was kind of gave you some insight to entrepreneurship and things like that, but not really a lot, but valuable stuff.
Yeah. Balance your checkbook. Gosh, that was about it. Really.
Yeah, and my parents, bless their hearts. I mean, honest to God, they're both amazing. They've set themselves up really well in their retirement, in their winter years of their lives, and that's a tough thing to say. By making conservative but sound financial decisions.
What was that philosophy like growing up? Was it like so many of us, go get a good job, stay there for 30 years, retire, get your pension?
Yeah.
That's the path.
That's exactly the thing. And I think in their generation, so anybody that was kind of that of their age, like they're on the older part of baby boom, right?
Yes.
They're 82 now. So that was kind of the idea, was get a good job, a union job, pension, 401k. What I've learned is that a pension and a 401k were never designed to be your retirement.
Wait, hold on. What?
They were never designed.
What do you mean?
They were never designed to be your whole retirement plan. They were supposed to supplement retirement. They were supposed
supplement retirement.
Exactly.
Okay.
The idea is that you have these really cool things that are there for you, but they're not really tax advantaged. So and I think a lot of people don't understand that. They just think about these things. They're like, okay, I got this thing that's going, and I'm not even thinking about it. I'm not going to look at my 401k, because every time I look at my 401k, it's tied directly to mutual funds in the stock market.
It's doing this.
And so it may have 150 grand in it in January, and then have 120. Right. And if you're like me, and you're just a blue collar working guy, you're like, that's a hit.
How am I going to recover from that?
Right. But I just, like most people, just signed it off and figured It's there.
Somebody's
Don't worry about
watching it.
Don't worry about
Somebody knows what they're doing. So yeah,
Exactly.
they got my best interest at heart.
it.
Right?
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And one of the things that happened when immediately when I started working with my financial advisors, we made some changes. But like I was saying, is I didn't understand that, and so then when here's the exact process that happened. I got a phone call. I was actually on a telephone pole, and Betsy called me, and she said, "Hey, dude, I just did our taxes. We're gonna owe $4,000 to the IRS.
And you've never owed before.
Never owed before." And I was like, "Oh man, that's a hit. That's gonna hurt." And because that's where.
Well, you're probably
that's
used to getting
where-
a refund, right?
Right, and that's where we were financially. A $4,000 hit was a big deal. And you can imagine, people get like a medical emergency, something like that. That will sink people.
Right.
I mean, literally, it will absolutely crush them. And she said, "But I was thinking I could take it and have it done professionally. But it's going to cost like $250. You think I ought to do that?" And I was like, "Well, yeah,
If it's going to help
$4,000
us avoid $4,000, Yeah.
$4,000 versus $4,250. I mean, yeah.
Right.
What's the worst they're gonna do? Not get us anything?" We ended up getting like a $100 refund. But that just goes to show you that there's people who know the industries, who know what you should be doing, what you have access to that you don't know. You know, I wouldn't claim to have any idea how to do real estate or help people with mortgage, things like that. So that's when I look to people like you as kind of a referral partner and say, "I don't know, but I got a guy." And I always want to be that guy that says, "I got a guy." You know, "You need some concrete work done? I got a guy." You know, and those people are amazing assets to have, right?
Yep.
Like, I got a mechanic that works on hybrids that's unbelievable, and it was just luck, dumb luck that I stumbled upon him. Super honest dude, never ever tries to put me over a barrel, never tries to trick me. In fact, the guy says sometimes, I'll bring it in, I say, "I got this problem," and he says, you can probably do this." What kind of mechanic doesn't say, "Oh yeah, we can do
Right.
that, no problem.
Right.
We'll get you in 2 weeks, and it'll cost you $1,000 or something like that"? No, he's like, "I can source the part for you, but you can do it yourself. You're capable." And I'm sure he has, but that's building that relationship, so he knows what I'm capable of, and I'm pretty handy. And
But
also,
think about
YouTube University.
I'm 46. You're
Uh-huh.
50?
52.
52. How many of those people can we name? Not very
A
many.
handful.
That's a problem.
I think so too. And I think it's in those people who have that, who are, that you can count on, that are people you trust, and have that authenticity to them, are really valuable resources. I know that if I send somebody to the Estrada group, I know they're going to be taken care of. I absolutely know, without any sort of question or doubt, right? I know that if I send somebody up to see my friend Paul at Boulder Hybrids, plug, I know that they're going to walk away from Paul knowing that he's taking care of it, and he's not going to charge them more than is right, you know?
It's like dealing with you if you had that skill or expertise in that field.
Right.
Or even better.
Right. And who can make themselves, you shouldn't make yourself feel like you have to know everything about every industry. I don't know all of the different nuances to tax law, right? So when we handed it over to somebody that really did know something about taxes, it turned out that, a net gain of $100 for a tax return is is not awesome, but it's a heck of a lot better than a $4,000 loss.
Well, I think most people think that it costs too much to
I think
get
so,
that
too.
kind of advice.
I think you're right. So that kind of collates back into what I was saying about this firm that I'm with. And you've been to the office.
Yeah.
And you've heard a lot about it. One of the things that I really, really like about it is a lot of financial firms, they have kind of a break-in. You have to have a net worth of X amount of dollars in order to be partnered with them and to be accepted as a client of theirs. And they're really looking for, I don't like to say that the phrase whale, but they're looking
I
for
know what you're
high
talking
net worth people, people that are, $1 million or more, just to kind of even consider talking to them, because a lot of financial advisors are paid by, funds under management, right?
That's how they get paid.
Exactly.
X amount of funds under management, that's what your pay is.
Right.
Right.
And so, Transamerica or World Financial Group, was technically the umbrella that I'm under, as doing life and health, is they are focused on three things specifically. One of them is to get the information out and provide really a sound financial education to people, just to get the information that the uber wealthy have had at their disposal their whole lives. Show them strategies that they have access to, but they never thought that they had access to them because they were not high net worth people. People that are making less than $100,000 a year, making less than $70,000 a year, people making around $50,000 a year. There's tools that are available that, for the most part, they don't know about. And so that really kind of was a satisfying part. That's free. I mean, if you were to go in, and they don't charge you anything, just to have a look at your books and say, yeah, this is where you're at. Here's where we would say you might want to focus on.
So what is the
That's
biggest
not even
challenge?
becoming a client. That's
So-
just
Why I always try to figure out, why don't people take advantage of that? Are they embarrassed? What's the biggest challenge that you've encountered where people aren't lining up to do that?
what do you think the two greatest taboo subjects are for people to talk about?
I know money's one.
Mm-hmm. Money and sex.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm. They are the two of the most deeply personal things that people are really reticent to have a conversation about. And so getting people to open up and trust you and being able to provide that to people, that's an uphill battle. Getting somebody to say, how much money they make. And they've been working a lot of, like, for Betsy and I, we were in our 40s when we met Chris, our financial advisor. And Betsy, she was always the CFO of Goddard Corporation, right?
Yes.
And so she's amazing. She's really one of the smartest people that I know. My daughter Gigi, far and away the smartest person I've ever known. Bella, brilliant. Same. And they, they all have their own attributes that are remarkable. That's just the dad in me.
Yeah.
But Betsy was the CFO, so she was handling everything, but she didn't have financial education. She's a Gen X, and I don't think that much has changed as far as financial education in schools. I think there's some, but there's not nearly enough.
No, I just think that kids have gone outside of school to find the information, and it's more readily available. It's on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
It's you see all these young kids making a lot of money a lot faster,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's just a part of what the internet has brought.
I think so too, and I think that is valuable. But I think that the problem with some of the social platforms is that the information is not necessarily verifiable. I mean, you don't have.
Well, you do a
how
Google
you-
search, and it's like
Right.
10,000 pages of information.
Exactly.
You go on TikTok,
Mm-hmm.
you don't know if that person is wealthy or not, or it's just a show.
Yeah.
So
you go to a TikTok and you Google index investments, right? And you get a lot of information, and a lot of it's valuable. But really, what it should be is maybe an inspiration to sit down with somebody like me or somebody in my firm. And I always tell people that you should talk to somebody. I don't care what your net worth is. You should talk to somebody. Maybe I'm not the guy, but somebody is the guy. When I say the guy, I don't mean that to be
a person.
a person.
Yeah.
Use the right lack of pronoun. But yeah, I think there's a lot of embarrassment as to, for us it was an embarrassment. How are we grown-ups in the world
And don't know this.
and don't know this? You know, we thought we're gonna just plug away and pay off our house. Sometimes that's not the best advice. Sometimes having a mortgage is a better financial choice than just paying it off. What you gain by not having a mortgage payment is not necessarily of greater value than having the tax advantages of having a mortgage. It's things that we learned that we just didn't know.
So is this changing your mindset a little bit?
Yes, very much so. Actually, it really is satisfying in my soul to see that light bulb that Betsy and I had when we learned about some of these different kind of strategies. And I remember very vividly sitting at my kitchen table with Chris, our financial advisor, and him showing us some of these different strategies. And I'm sitting back and I am a side-eye guy. I am suspicious, so suspicious. And I remember sitting back in my chair and literally turning my head and looking at him with a side eye and saying, "This doesn't sound legal." And he was like, "It's perfectly legal. Here's the tax code." He explained the tax code to us that shows that it's empirically provably legal to use some of these strategies. To which my response was the same thing that you just said. Why isn't everybody doing this? The answer to that is they don't know. They don't know it's available. And they're too embarrassed to ask. They're too embarrassed to just say, I don't have to know all the answers. I think one of the cool things about like our kids' generation is they learned a really valuable lesson in that they just know that they have to use their resources. They're better at that.
I agree with that.
They're way better at that than we are. Because we were always, and I don't know, maybe there's some misogynistic part of me that feels like as a husband and a father, I had this responsibility to really take care and make sure that everything was up and up. And honestly, you know, when I look back on it, it feels like I was wearing a mask the whole time and I was just pretending. And that's a little bit, I mean, that's a vulnerable thing to admit.
Ooh, that's a hard pill to swallow.
I think there's a lot of people out there that are my age and like that have hit middle age. God, middle age is 52. I don't think I'm gonna make 104. But hit, you know, what is adulthood, and have to kind of go, I don't know, and I don't know who my resources are. Like your industry, incredibly difficult. If you think about it, if you were to ask anybody out there, how many real estate agents do you know?
I could throw a rock right now and probably hit 3.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's an incredibly difficult place to be, which is why you and I, that's what you should call the podcast, two guys chopping it up. Because I mean that's what we get on that's what we do on the golf course.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to bring in. You know, it's like, hey, nobody else is around. There's no cameras. It's just two guys.
Well, and that's what I thought. You know, when I was talking to you on the golf course, because this is new. Because honestly, it's networking. It's building a book, a business. and meeting new people. And I love meeting new people. I love hearing their stories. I love that, and I've been missing that for virtually my whole career, because
It's hard to meet people on a telephone pole.
It is, and it's very solitary, and it was very lonely. And you come to just accept that that's part of it, and you're like, okay, it's kind of this weird acceptance, and you're like, okay, this is my role. And then when I had an opportunity to start talking to people again and engaging with them and hearing their stories and that sort of thing, I was like, oh yeah, no, I like this. I like learning about people. But learning how to translate that into a networking sort of a thing without being salesy, because I hate that. I'm super suspicious.
So what,
But you have such great credibility.
yeah, but I mean, but the salesy part, tell me more about that, because I hear a lot of people that get into a sales business, and they tell me that. They're like, train me how to do the job, but I don't want to be salesy.
Right.
What does that mean?
I think learning when to, I don't want to say push, winning to step forward and knowing when to step back. That's a hard thing for me to recognize, and I'm desperately trying to do that. And that's why, I know that I have credibility just as a person, but for 30 years people have known me as Casey, telephone company.
You have an identity crisis.
Right, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a weird thing that people do, is they tie their value and who they are to what they do. Somebody asks you, what's your story, right? What do you say? You tell them what you do.
Right. Yeah. That's code for, I got to tell you what I do for a living.
Right.
Right. Because that creates the identity.
Exactly. But it's really not. It's really not. Luckily I've known you, and I know you for being funny and a great friend, and somebody I like to call like flat tire people, right?
Okay, I'm waiting for the compliment.
It's coming.
Okay.
You're on my list. You may not like this, but you're one of the people that are on my list of people that I would call if I was stranded somewhere.
I love that.
So it's my flat tire people.
I'm one of your guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not that.
I like that. Okay.
It's not just the professional part. I mean, obviously that's there. Your credibilities and your credibility, Tiana's credibility, Nathaniel's credibility, all those things are beyond reproach. I know that because I know you. But that's something that people that you're beginning relationships with don't necessarily know. And trying to validate that to them, I think can be difficult, because then you come off as really egocentric, or it's about you and less about them, and that kind of undercuts your credibility. So,
well, let me ask you this, because I understand where you're coming from. Well, let's say you get cancer, God forbid.
Wow.
You just got a call.
Compliment.
All right? You just got a call, you have brain cancer.
Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
It's
We're
a
going.
big deal. It's a big deal.
All right.
You go to the doctor, you call the number one specialist in the world, you go see the doctor, and the doctor says, I got some advice, but I don't want to sound too doctory.
Right.
How would you feel about that doctor? Unless, and then you went to another doctor, and they're like, if I were you, I would do this, this, and this, and I would do it right now.
I think that.
And it's going to save your life.
Yeah, I think option B.
Does that sound salesy?
It doesn't. And I think that logically, my brain processes that exactly, because I think that dovetails really quickly and easily into that thing that I said earlier, which is recognizing, I don't know if we were talking about this before we started, but recognizing somebody's need. And a lot of times they don't know they have that need. I mean, in real estate, you have a big part of yours is just making sure your name is out there and your people are understanding your credibility, and that comes from a lot of referrals and your network and stuff like that, right? But recognizing that need, people a lot of times know that they need a roof, right?
Yeah. Or I got a job transfer. I have to move.
There's
Yeah.
Or but then in finance, there's people that feel like, well, I'm just plugging along. This is just the way it is, you know. I'm paycheck to paycheck. Stuff costs too much. All these different things, and so they have this apathy of, I don't, you know, I'm paying my rent. I'm paying
I'm
my
getting by.
mortgage.
I'm
getting
okay.
by.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I guess I'll never go on a vacation. I guess these are the cards we're dealt, and this is where I'm at. Okay, so there's people that know or find out, like Betsy and I did. Oh, we don't know that we need help, but maybe we do. And I happen to know Chris. I've known Chris since we were in middle school. So it was like, well, I mean, I don't know anybody that does finance. My parents' guy is like 100 years old. He certainly didn't have
Right.
He didn't have a real good idea as to what my situation was,
Right.
or where the non-traditional paths are moving forward. Because I think, especially for Nathaniel, for our kids, they're going to have to be way more dynamic, way more creative when it comes to creating the idea of a retirement.
Well, and I think that's the challenge is we got to do a better job of painting the picture of where they're headed.
Right.
And this is what your life is going to look like in 20 or 30 years if you don't do it this way.
Yeah.
And if you're okay with that, great. But if you're not okay, we need to make some adjustments.
It's an interesting thing because when you sit down with people and you say, and part of a financial strategy for people is you say, okay, you know, where is your money? Do you know where your money is? And they'd be like, oh yeah, I got a CD. I got my checking, my savings, and I got my, you know, this and that. And I got this 401k from this old job that I had, and I have, you know, these different things that are out there, and maybe I'll get an inheritance and these sorts of things, right? And then you ask them a question like, how old would you like to be when you stop working? And of course the answer is always right now. So the answer can't be right now. So what age are you going to choose? And you know, by and large, people are like 55, right?
Mm-hmm. That a popular answer?
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And it's again like I wanted 30 years. I don't know why.
Right.
But people are like 55. You know, my parents retired at 55 or 60, and that's what I want to do. So it's like, okay, well, we're going to look at these things, and then we're going to actually figure out what a more realistic idea is. Because the next question is, how much money do you think that you need on a monthly basis to live a lifestyle that you want to live starting at 55? And not having an income. And people often really underestimate that amount.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that they really understand how expensive it is going to be, or what the additional expenses are going to be. And you know, it's
And how do you get a 25-year-old to think about that?
It's so difficult. It really is difficult because where were you when you were 20?
Oh,
you were invincible.
yeah.
Nothing was ever going to happen
I
to you.
have time.
Oh,
I have time.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Well, and I think the biggest challenge that we all have, and especially you being in the industry, is change is hard. And I talk to my kids about this all the time, and they're probably sick of hearing this, is being better is really hard.
It's so hard.
Being better about saving, being better about money management, being better about sacrificing now so I can have later.
Self-discipline.
All those things. And I think that's the biggest challenge that you have, is that you're challenging somebody to be better,
Right.
when they're not ready to be better.
Yeah. But I think part of what's the saying? The best disinfectant is daylight or sunshine. And
Haven't heard that. No.
yeah, it just means that the best way to identify and fix a problem is to know about the problem, right? Shine a light on it.
I see.
So I think that, like I was saying, is that it's a matter of identifying those people or helping those people identify themselves, and then showing that there's a solution. And then what you're doing there is you're not really selling. You're connecting. You're connecting a need with a solution. That's what I love. But that gap, getting that gap filled, is an interesting thing to try to do, especially if you're a skeptic and you know where you are. So now you're putting that out there. You know, there's people that identify themselves. They're like, oh yeah, I'm lost. But then there's a lot of people that don't know.
Most people.
Right.
Yeah.
Most people.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, hey, where do you suck? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Did you know you suck here?
Yeah, that's a difficult business model.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing is too, is I have a real passive kind of approach, and and real estate people are masters at self-promotion and networking, and they really are. They have to be. It's just way too competitive. So you have to be able to do the things that you do. And a lot of it is mailers and things like that, and some of the things that you guys do, your events and your Christmas pot. Is it Christmas, Thanksgiving?
Thanksgiving pie
Thanksgiving
giveaway.
pie
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, and so I mean it's amazing.
But I would challenge you, Casey, because as a dad, would you say you're a passive dad?
No.
Because being a dad is really important to you, right?
Right.
So if one of your girls gets in a car accident and they call you and say, Casey,
There's so much horrific stuff happening in my
Yeah,
life, man.
this is
Cancer.
reality. Yeah. But how passive are you going to be?
Oh, not at all.
No.
Right.
So I think the challenge you have is that you got to get the clarity and conviction that you have the best answer for people.
Yeah. Well, I agree. And some of I think another obstacle for me is I have an enormous amount of credibility. People that know me know that I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be upfront. I'm not going to mislead them. I'm not going to do that sort of thing. But again, I'm an expert in this industry that I spent 30 years in.
So-
I've been doing this for less than 2 years, and so
Be an expert in that.
Be an expert in that.
That's it.
And I think that part of it is my own insecurity, but there's also I believe that I want to make sure people know that my credibility is there, and that they know that I am not the one that's going to have all of the answers, but I have access to all of the answers. I have the resources, and I know that I'm not going to connect you with somebody who's going to take advantage of you in some way.
Well, that's what we call a professional. It's
I like that.
We know what we know, and we know what we don't know.
Right.
And if we don't know it, we'll find somebody that does.
I found though that I have found that there's I've hit a point where there's like a danger zone. This is interesting. I read this somewhere. There's a danger zone where you know that you don't know anything. There's a period of time where you know that you don't know anything, and that's actually not a terrible thing. And then you transition to a place where you know some stuff. That is the danger zone. The danger zone is you think you know more than you know, right? And
You got to get through that as fast as possible.
you really do.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a tremendous learning curve.
Yeah.
And I think that's the place where you have to leverage the people who really actually do know, and they can help you navigate that. So you're learning at the same time.
Yeah.
So
You need to get up to speed as fast as possible.
Right.
And you don't have to be 100% to that level.
Right.
But you got to get to 80%, 90%, and you got to that's where you need to be spending your time.
Right. Well, and that's where I'm at now. Is I know what I can do. I'm very clear on that, and I'm educating myself every single day as to move forward in these other licensures and things like that, credentials. And I know that I can leverage those folks in my office that have that. I know that I can leverage my credibility into this danger zone.
Yeah.
But I'm building a lot more confidence because I actually do. I am finding that I'm retaining, and the cool thing is I think about myself. I'm not trying to toot my own horn or anything like that, but I think that one of the things that I'm particularly adept at is taking complex ideas and translating them in a way that whatever that audience is that I'm talking to, it's understandable without being pedantic, without making this audience feel like I'm dumbing it down. And that's a terrible euphemism, I think, dumbing something down, because I think the most intelligent thing a person can do that is communicating is making sure that their audience understands what they're communicating,
Absolutely.
because otherwise there's no message, right?
Well, even if there's a message and you don't understand it, there's no value.
Right, and that's what I mean, is that
I think everything should be at a third grade level. Everything. I would not take offense to it, because what that shows me is that the teacher really understands it. Because if you talk to somebody that's 80, 90, 100, and you ask them a question, they don't give you a whole paragraph
right,
and an answer. They give you one or two words.
right,
Because they know all the wisdom behind that comes down to, they distill it down to one word or a sentence.
yeah,
And that's it.
yeah,
And I don't feel offended by that.
no,
I feel like I just got the best advice of my life.
right. Why not me?
Right. There you go.
Perfect example. So I agree, and I volunteer that. Like I'm self-aware enough to know that I'll volunteer that. Just today, this morning, before I came here, so I've been having a problem with my computer at home, which is a problem, because
You kind of need one now.
lion's share of my work is online. I kept losing internet connectivity. I could not figure out why. So I'm going in, I'm Googling, and I'm doing these different things, going to Microsoft Help and all these different things, and they're like, all right, make sure you have the latest version of this driver, and so I'm doing that stuff, and it's scary because I'm like, oh my god, I'm going to torpedo this whole thing.
You're just simply updating Windows. Yeah.
Yeah. So finally today, I'm like, it does it again, because I thought I had it all sorted. So I'm banging away on the computer, and all of a sudden it's like the web page that I'm trying to load, it goes no access, or can't load web page or whatever. I'm like, so I look down at the little icon that's supposed to look like the umbrella,
right.
the rainbow thing, and the connectivity thing, and icon, and it looks like a little globe with a big line through it, and I'm like, oh, that's a problem.
Yeah.
So finally, I was just like, I'm calling Lenovo. That's the manufacturer. I'm out of warranty. All these different things. So I call, and I talked to this guy Ganesh, and it was Ganesh. And
How do you remember that?
I write it down usually because I like to know who I'm talking to.
Wow.
So
That's
through
impressive.
through the conversation, I'll usually just jot down their name, and especially if it's like there's a heavy accent involved, I'll be like, I apologize. This is not your fault at all, but my American ears are not hearing you clearly. So do you mind spelling that for me? And usually they're like, oh, yeah, absolutely. And they give me the spelling and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, okay.
I was way off. Yeah.
Oh my God. For real.
It's
real.
John. So did you figure out the internet thing or what?
Yeah, I mean, and I was like, look, man, I know that I don't know. And so I'm going to need you to walk me through this, but I'm going to need you to treat me like a third grader, okay? So let's just move through this and I'm going to ask you a lot of questions. And I'm going to ask you to repeat yourself because,
You might be
no
going
offense.
too fast.
Well,
Yeah.
no offense. Yeah, there's a bit of a language
Yeah,
barrier,
sure.
and but I mean, you speak at least 2 languages. I barely
impressed.
barely got a grasp on one. So he was
So help me
super-
out, John.
He was super cool. He was super. I did that to one guy. I called another helpline, and it was an offshore help desk, and they the guy says his name, and I was like, oh, okay. So I write it down, and I asked him to spell it for me, but I think one of the letters was M and not N or something. I don't know what it was.
Okay.
But I didn't, because when I spell stuff for people, I usually go right to the military alphabet. Like for my name, I'm like Charlie Alpha Sierra Echo Yankee, which I think is helpful. Right? So I go through that whole phone call.
Assuming everybody's been in the military, right?
Well, I mean, you would get it, right?
Yeah, I would.
Right?
I would.
Especially when you have a name like my last name, where I have a bunch of letters in my last name that all sound very similar.
Yeah, that's true. We have
Right?
like 4 D's or something.
Yeah, and a G's in there, and
D, G, E. Yeah.
right. Most people can get vowels, but all the consonants can be problematic. Pardon me. So anyway, I go through this whole call, and I was like, and then I asked him to spell. I was like, we got disconnected. That's what it was. Get disconnected. He called me back, and I was like, wow, that's cool. Thanks. So I said his name, and he was like, who? And I was like, is this not so and so? And he goes, no. And I was like, well, okay. Well, I just got disconnected. He goes, yeah, it was from me. And I was like, what's your name?
Oh.
So he spells his name back to me again, and I was like, oh. And it was not Ganesh. It was like Edward.
Way off.
I was like,
Maybe he changed it. He's like, forget this guy.
Good
I'm
chance.
going with Edward.
good chance, right? Although I did talk to an offshore help desk one time, and the name, a lot of times I think they tell him to pick like an American.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
And he chose Elvis.
Sweet.
That's what I
That's
thought.
awesome.
I was like,
Yeah.
nice, man.
Yeah.
Good choice. I mean, John was, John's available.
Yeah. Nope, going with Elvis.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. But anyway, he just walks me through it, and I was like, just treat me like I'm in 3rd grade. And he was like, all right. He was really calm, really patient, and it was like 4 steps.
Oh,
It was like 4 steps.
like unplug it, plug it back in.
Kinda.
Yeah.
It was like uninstall this. And now turn your computer back on. It'll automatically launch the reinstall. And I was like, oh.
Man.
And it's working great. So here I am, been fighting with it for 2 weeks, trying to figure it out on my own. And, talking to Betsy, I'm like, Betsy, what do you think's going on here? And she's like, I don't know. I'll figure it out.
So-
I've been in technology for 30 years.
I'm surprised you didn't climb a pole in the back and
Right.
just try to plug stuff
Well,
in.
I did check to make sure that it was connected. The last thing you want to do is call in and be like, "What's the problem?" and have them go through all this stuff, and you go, "It still doesn't work," and they go, "Is it plugged in?"
Ugh.
I was like,
Now they go directly to that. I think.
yeah,
It's
I
just,
think so
yeah.
too. Kristen had a situation like that.
Oh no.
Yeah, her
Boy.
internet went down, and she could not figure it out because the light on the modem was working. No, something was working. The end thing was she admits to it, and hopefully she wouldn't be embarrassed for me to tell you this. She got a little Karen-y,
Ah.
And, so she demanded a dispatch. She needed her computer on, and they dispatched somebody. And she was effective. She got somebody out there. What had happened was she had plugged in a space heater in her office and
kicked the breaker.
and it tripped the not the breaker, but just like the surge protector.
Oh.
Oops. So
Oops.
that was the only thing that was on that surge protector. But she was like, everything else works. So yeah, I was
The
like,
text like this.
yeah. Well, it wasn't even unplugged. It was just like he just went like.
See you, lady.
That would be $95.
Yeah, 95. Oh man. So what's on tap for you this year? I mean, are you?
I just keep building, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Trying to explore different things. I think just I need to get out and talk to people. I think that's a big part of it, and I know that you and I are going to get together individually and maybe help come up with some strategies. I think that'd be cool. I look forward to that. I mentioned that. Also, I mean, there's always dreams and aspirations, right? So Betsy and I, we've talked about in the past that when she's ready to retire completely, and when provided we're able to, one of the things that we've considered is possibly moving overseas, expatriating to somewhere in the Mediterranean. We love Greece, we love Spain, just amazing. Italy,
Wow.
we just absolutely love that part of the world, and I've found that they're just so wonderful. The people I've interacted with have been amazing. There's even a few places like in Turkey that we've been to that there's one in particular that I thought, oh my gosh, these people are just so amazing. And I think that as Americans sometimes we get a little myopic in our perspective on other cultures and stuff like that. And I don't know if it was Shakespeare, it was somebody, I think it was Shakespeare, I'm not sure, said, life is like a book. And I'm totally paraphrasing. Life is like a book. And if you don't leave home, you've read but one page.
Mm.
And so travel's always been a big, big dream of ours. We've been lucky to travel pretty extensively. I mean, I've been to 6 of 7 continents. The only one I have left is Africa. And we would like to visit, but the long-term goals, the 10 to 15 year goals for us are possibly to make that move. Now that's all contingent on, people's health factors and stuff like that. My parents are 82. We're not going to go anywhere, while they still need us and we can be available to them. But we have a couple of trips planned for this year, a couple of family functions and stuff like that. My wife is having a big birthday, and she said that she'd like to go someplace as a celebration of that. We're having a small get together for her, but she wants to do something more noteworthy, I think,
Mm-hmm.
which I totally get. We were in the Mediterranean for my birthday on my 50th, so it worked out. But she wants to do something.
Yeah.
Fair's fair, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a goal. The girls both have, she calls them their golden birthdays. Have you heard of this?
No.
It's Bella. Oh, this is what it is. Bella turns 26 on the 26th of August. And Gigi turns 22 on the 22nd of March. And of course, it's Betsy's 50th. And so they're just big years for stuff like that. And so we're trying to do something special. We just found out that we have a family reunion that we gotta go to. We have to. We're delighted to be going to. And then another family thing on Lake of the Ozarks.
Oh, that
So
sounds
go down
like
there
fun.
and launder some money.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Just kidding. Let's edit that out.
Yeah, right.
There goes all my
That's
credibility.
it. That's it.
right?
Done. That's it.
No, I had to take that specific training. Don't do this.
Well, that sounds like a good, fun year.
I think life is really good. every time we get these cold snaps, what is it? I think I looked at the temperature
Like
today.
-3 today,
Right,
this morning.
Right.
Yeah.
And every time I see that, or I look outside and I'm just standing in front of the window and I'm looking out and it's blizzarding out there, and I just think, boy, that looks miserable out there, and that's what I worked in for
Yeah.
so many years. And to be able to not have to work in that, it's kind of an amazing feeling.
Yeah.
Being able to play golf with my friends.
Yeah.
Some people like in getting back my schedule, having some flexibility,
Mm-hmm.
because it's really based on your clients and when they're available and stuff like that. You know that.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you and I are going to find times when we can hang out.
Yeah.
Right? We can get a cup of coffee and go play around the golf. You were invited, by the way, Nathaniel.
We got to get him
I'm
on the
ha-
golf course more.
I'm happy
Yeah.
to take your money. I broke 90, so
Did you?
yeah, I know that's not amazing, but it's pretty good for me.
That's like Everest to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I can get under 100, that's a huge win for me.
It's
Yeah.
you know what? It's just fun.
Yeah.
And I was able to play starting in September. I should have been doing it all summer, but I started playing golf with my dad every Thursday. And we go out and we play around the golf with my dad. And he's 82, and the dude
He's a good
just-
golfer.
He just smokes me. He doesn't hit the ball real far, but he plays like bogey golf. And, he's shooting in the 80s.
That's nuts.
It's bonkers.
Yeah.
And I get up there and I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna crush this.
Right.
No. As soon as you say that. Right?
Well, that's a fortunate thing to.
82 years old. How many more years am I gonna get to do those things with him? And I will not regret that. It's like when we were talking about our kids growing up. Somebody told me when we had just had or were going to have Bella, and they said it was a mentor of mine, a very, very dear friend who unfortunately has passed. He said, man, don't blink. He was from Jefferson Parish, Louisiana. He said, boy, don't blink. He said, you'll miss it. And so I very intentionally made the decision that I was gonna be present. I wasn't gonna be an absentee guy, and I was gonna know my kids. I was really gonna know them, know who they are, know what they're about, know their goals, know their dreams, know their friends, know the people that they're engaged with. These different things, and then though at that time would get longer. Turns out that's not the case. It's still just a blink of the eye.
Yeah.
And you've got grown-ups with kids of their own, and you're going, how did that happen? How did that happen?
Well, it sounds like you've lived a pretty big life already.
I've been really, really blessed and really lucky. I have an amazing village. My parents were really invested in making sure that my sister and I were able to see as much of the world as they could make happen for us. And that kind of planted that seed for us. My mom especially was very, very involved in our lives. And my dad, struggled with his own demons for a lot of years. And but when he came out the other side of it, and he and I rebuilt a relationship. It's one of the greatest relationships in my life. And so all of that kind of has come together and resulted in a really, really spectacular experience for me. So yeah, I'm good. I have a great kids. I have a wife who supports me unconditionally and calls me out.
What advice would you give these youngsters about how you've been able to be married and stay married so long?
Oh man. One of the things that I've told people who are young and are kind of moving into that kind of part of their life, and they're looking at very serious relationships and making these more adult decisions. a lot of times making one good choice is really, really important. Choosing who your life partner is going to be, who your ride or die is going to be, is really important. But there's a lot of micro decisions along the way, and one of the things that I've thought has been really a good barometer for me, and kept my personal compass pointed north, is I kind of always ask myself when it comes to a decision where it's a little dubious and I'm not quite sure what the right thing is to do, is I ask myself, would my wife or my mom approve of what I'm doing right now? If they could see me right now doing what I'm doing, would they be happy or embarrassed?
That's your filter.
And as long as I stay on the right side of that decision, it's never led me astray.
Wow.
One of the other things, and when it comes to my life and my marriage and my relationships with my children and my nuclear family, is the greatest return of my investments have been making those investments. When I have given, I've just been showered with return. And I think that there's a lot of people that feel like they're like giving stuff away it's gone. But I think that may be true. But I mean, I've always heard that if you give your money away, you'll get more back, right? But like love is one of those things that's just this well that is without end. You can give away what you think is all your love, but you have the exact same amount of love left. So I always just say, don't be afraid of that. Lean into that. So I think that's some of the advice that I would give young people. I think that lesson that I learned in my 40s about humility is important too. Learning gratitude, learning how to ask for help, learning to accept help are just key components in being able to live a really authentic life.
Well, I know you have an amazing family. We love your parents. We love your wife. We love your kids, and
She's
two wonderful girls.
She's got a new a new name it's just
A nickname?
nickname.
Oh,
When I do something dumb, which I just do. I can't help it. I just can't help myself. There's things that I do it and I'm doing it and I'm like, this is dumb.
so whatever happened to that whole my wife and my mom filter?
Well, these are like those inconsequential things.
Oh, okay, okay. It was
You
not
know?
a big decision. It's
Right.
yeah.
Like comes to mind. In my shed, I have a loft in the shed, and I had this toolbox up on the loft. It was crazy heavy. It was about 60 pounds, and I was pulling it down, and I pull it down. It slips out of my hands, and it hit me. It fell off, and it hit me right in the head, right, and
Oh, gash.
oh my god, there was a cut, and I kid you not, it was about probably a 2 to 3 inch lump, and I'm bald,
Yeah.
so it's readily apparent,
Yeah.
and it's sticking out
Oh,
like
geez.
3/4 of an inch.
Oh.
It's huge.
It's like that one. Was it Mike Tyson or who was it? That Rockman fight. Have you ever seen that? Where he gets that like has busted his eye, and it's like he's like bouncing around, and it's like it's like oh my! It's you got to YouTube it. It's like pull it up, buddy.
This thing was
Yeah.
angry and hard.
Boxing fight.
Oh my
Or
god!
something like that. Yep. No, that's not it.
It's like
but-
it broke his orbital bone or
Yeah.
something. Huh?
Wow. That's nuts.
Yeah, but
Yeah, something like that where it's like it's huge.
Take that thing and put it like up here where it can be really isolated and shiny.
Obvious. So was there a moment where
And
you're
she-
like, I'm reaching up. I know this isn't the best thing to do, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Oh yeah, the whole
Yeah,
thing.
like, oh yeah,
Oh, I got this
I,
though.
I constantly battle
The
that.
risk. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna go get.
No, I'm not going to get a
ladder.
step ladder. No. I'm going to
it's-
jump. I'm actually going to jump up and get it and pull it down.
It's like 20.
Yeah.
It's like the
Yeah.
ladder's like 20 feet away. I'm right here. So
Why waste the energy?
yeah. So I, my wife, I was like, I did this. What were you doing? Well, are you okay? Because she's a good person.
I don't think she cares though.
Well, she pretended. Are you okay? Yeah. You dope. I was like,
You idiot.
dope.
Yeah.
You don't get a lot of dope these days.
I love that. Though.
Yeah.
That encompasses a lot of things.
Yeah. Got it covered.
Yeah.
It's not like horribly aggressive.
Right.
It's yeah. Dang. That was an interesting thing.
Well, I mean, you've had a big life. You got a big life ahead of you.
I have great friends.
You have great people around you.
I do. I have great people. I have great friends.
No one succeeds alone. I know Buddy's heard that a million times.
Mm.
So
Don't be an island.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm 52. I have like five. I think it's really weird. And it's maybe it's one of those toxic masculinity things, and I try to be aware. I'm a girl dad,
Yeah.
so I try to be really aware. But it's really hard for men, I think, to be open and genuine and vulnerable with other men, right? And I've just been absolutely blessed with like 5 people that I know that are those flat tire people.
Mhm.
Those are people that I just know that I can count on. You've seen that meme where the guy goes to his buddy and he says, I need your help with something. Don't ask any questions. We could go to jail. But I need your help.
Are you in?
Yeah, are you in? And the guy goes, I'm in. And I feel like I have those guys. In my own more
Right.
more
Yeah.
suburban way. But
But that is a huge gift.
yeah,
Huge
you
gift.
have those people that you can count
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
for sure.
But
For
you
sure.
also have earned it. I think you have to earn it.
I think you have to cultivate it.
Yeah.
I think that you have to be the person that says, when you talk to somebody that you haven't talked to for 10 years, or not 10 years, but a long time, months,
Mm-hmm.
but then you reconnect with them and you don't go, why haven't you called me? Where have you been? What have you been up to? Those sorts of things. It's maybe some of the same questions, but it's asked from a different place. How are you? What have you been up to? What's new? I'm so glad you called. Those sorts of things, those are the relationships that I think I value the most, and those are the ones of those people. And I say that specific to men, just because I think that's more unusual. I think that's more exceptional than it is the rule. I have lots of friends, women that, and
Well, I think
Every other
the
pronoun.
the thing that I think that men think that it's a weakness and it's really a strength.
I agree. I
To
think it
know
takes-
when you need help and when you're being vulnerable is a strength, and I think it's misunderstood.
I think so too.
Mm.
I think so too. I think it should be something we should all strive to
Yeah.
try to find that place.
Do you have any regrets at 52?
I have a few.
Yeah.
But I would say that the lion's share of any regrets that I have, I don't think I would trade them. I don't think I would take them back. I think that those have been some of the best opportunities for learning that I can experience. I think that some of the mistakes you make tend to be the biggest and best lessons, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're like me, I don't have to make the same mistake twice. I have to make it 6, 8, a dozen times to make sure that lesson really lands.
I didn't learn it the first
Just
6 times.
It doesn't take me twice.
Yeah. That's so weird about human behavior that yeah. I struggle with that too. I just don't learn quick enough.
Yeah.
I just don't. Yeah.
I think that's one of the things, like when I pulled that toolbox on my head.
Like, you know better.
You know that it's not going to work out.
and if your buddy or your kid was doing the same thing, what would you tell them? Don't do that.
What are you doing?
Yeah. What are you doing?
You dope.
Yeah. Well, we all have a weak human nature, I think. So.
Hubris. I think that it's something. I think maybe it's installed in our software.
Sure.
Just so that we can learn those lessons.
Yep. So we can continue learning.
Now I get to a point like with Betsy, and I'll be considering doing sometimes it's something that's not the smartest thing in the world, and she's like, "What are you doing?" and I go, buffering.
Yeah. I'm spooling.
Yeah. I'm buffering.
Yeah. Especially now that you said that, I'm gonna reconsider.
my connection is a little slow
Yeah.
at the moment. So, yeah.
Well, cool, man. Well, I love
This is
having
really
you
fun.
on. Yeah.
I'm so glad.
Is it what you expected?
I didn't really know what to expect. I mean, I've been on probably half a dozen different podcasts. Not really.
No.
This is the first
No,
time.
this is the first. Well, I'm glad to be here first.
It was
so.
You told me
Yeah.
we're just gonna have a conversation.
Yeah.
2 dudes chopping it up.
How does it feel on that side?
I know you guys.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, just forgetting that you have a headset on, kind of all askew.
Yeah.
And
Can you show them how you wore it the first time?
How did I have it? Oh, like this.
Okay.
Like that?
Or no,
was
we
it
need to make it
like that.
It's actually not a bad look. So no, but I'm glad you came on. Most people are kind of nervous when I ask
can
them.
see that.
Yeah, but
I didn't even ask you what. Well, I did ask you what to expect, and you said we're just gonna
we're
chat.
just gonna chat. Yeah. So
No, actually, I think one of the things that's really cool, and I maybe share this with people when you have them on, is I things land better with me. Like, I understand more about myself when I'm able to kind of verbalize them with other people, and it has a way of kind of recentering you when you actually kind of put it out there. When you tell somebody else something, it resonates with you. So, like, I love mentoring. I love training people. It's one of the things that I did throughout my career. It's one of the things that I do with my kids. I just love it. And in fact, one of Bella's college roommates happened to be in town, and I was teaching Gigi how to change the brakes on her car. And she was, and I have like I said, I like to communicate to the right audience. I like to communicate in the right way to the right audience. And so I'm talking to my daughter. She's brilliant, but she's not a mechanic.
Yeah.
And so I'm explaining to her these different things and why they're important to consider. And my Bella's college roommate's like, you need to do a YouTube channel. And I was like, cool. But I think that what happens is when you tell somebody or you teach somebody how to do something, it actually ingrains that more. It builds your confidence.
Well, they say if you want to learn something, teach it.
Yeah. They also say that those that don't know how.
Teach. There's probably some truth to that too.
Probably.
So yeah. Do you see yourself teaching more? Like, are you like a big crowd or like a classroom environment or?
I don't mind that. and I know you probably can't tell because you're able to adjust the microphone and things like that, but I'm a low speaker.
You're quiet. Yeah.
I don't. I'm not real. I'm verbose. I talk, but I have a lot of people that are always like, what? So
Is that on purpose, or you've just always done that?
No, I've always done that, but I've worked on it now that I'm trying to present ideas and things like that to people. And I've had opportunity to speak in front of groups, and I mean that's a knee wobbler, but you get used to it, I think, and but that's
it's a work in progress.
Yeah, it is, but it really is soul filling, soul satisfying to see those light bulb moments with people, even if it's like you're talking to 30 people and 2 people go, you see it on their face and they're just like, oh, how is that legal?
Yeah.
Then you go, then it's worth it.
Yeah.
It's worth it. So.
Well, cool. We'll have to have you back.
I would love to. This is fun.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. I could see you, but I don't see all of them very often. And Tree coming home, that's cool.
Yeah, Trini's coming home, so we're excited about that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
So.
It's so funny when you think about it. When Bella went to school, when she went to Black Hills, and then when she came home, and she would be home for a week or two over Christmas break or whatever it was, it was funny because I didn't realize how kind of stressed I became when I didn't have all of them right here, which is weird. But when she got home, it was so clear because it was, I think like my shoulders dropped.
Well, you worry about them.
You do.
Yeah, even though they're adults. And Tiana, we were talking about this the other night at dinner. It's like, she was just like, I just want to not worry.
And I don't know why, but
I know it has nothing to do with them.
Fully capable.
Yeah, like they have done nothing to do. I mean, that they did to make us worry, but it's the little things. Did they get to their car?
Yeah.
Did their tires? Their tires good. Like as a dad, it's like,
right.
Did they change their oil? Those kinds of things.
We're probably run out of time. But it's interesting, something that I learned, and I think that I've had to be really open to learning as a girl dad maybe. But like when Bella went to school and she went up to a campus, she went away to school, and I was talking to her and I was like, all right, so I'm your dad, or I didn't say that, but she knows that. But as her dad, I was saying, all right, so what I want you to do is I want you to be aware. I've worked in Boulder. I know that things happen on college campuses. And I want you to be really aware. I want you to always be aware of your surroundings. I want you to know where the call boxes are on campus. If you're having to leave one building and go to another building, really use your resources. If you need to call security or a trusted friend or whatever to accompany you on these sorts of things, I really want you to do that. I want you to be aware and be smart and things like that. And she was getting like progressively more agitated about it. And I was like,
yeah,
what's the deal here? This is just information. It's
common
advice,
sense.
fatherly advice. It was coming from a really wholesome place.
Right. Your intentions were good.
Right. But what I learned has been invaluable is that, I'm a white cisgender middle-aged man. I've never, nor will I ever be able to walk in anyone else's shoes. I will never understand a person of color's life. I will never understand a woman's life. I will never understand, just XYZ.
Everything that's different about
LGBTQ.
you.
I don't have that. I can't. I can sympathize. I can't empathize. Right. But what Bella told me was, I was like, "What is the problem? Why are you?
Yeah. Why are you gonna punch me?
Yeah, why are you being so resistant?" And she was like, Dad, I don't think you understand that it is so infuriating to be seen as a victim by virtue of my gender. And I was like, whoa. She goes, do you know that I only wear one earbud when I'm out running or exercising, or I'm out, walking around in the world? And I was like, no. Why? And she said, so that I can hear stuff that's going on. And she goes, do you look in your backseat of your car when you get into it? And I was like, well, no. I do. And I was like, wow. I was just like, wow, that was that light bulb moment. I was just like, oh my God.
She's been doing it this whole time.
Yeah. Who do you think you are telling me these things? And I was coming in, I'm just your dad. I just want you to be safe.
Yeah.
But and then I was like, I can see how that would be irritating, and that kind of toxicity. It was coming from a really wholesome place.
Yeah.
But
you know what? I think down the road she'll be like, you know what? Damn,
he cared.
my dad loved me.
Yeah. Hopefully. I
Because
think they do.
I
think they know that.
Yeah.
I hope they know that. Hey, you guys, if you listen, I love you.
Well, I think that's a great place to end.
I agree.
Yeah.
This took longer than you thought it was going to, huh?
No, I never have an expectation. I just go open-ended, see where it goes. So
I think this was lovely.
cool, man. Well, we'll have to have you back.
I appreciate you.
Yeah.
I'll be glad to come back.
Right on.
All right, man.